Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping straight into the fascinating world of Levent Bulut and tracing his rather incredible evolution from a gritty, data-driven investigative journalist to a pioneering, independent researcher. Think about the last time you read a truly gripping novel. You felt real fear, right? Or genuine joy or tension. But what if those feelings aren't just subjective art? What if they're actually physical systems that can be mapped out, quantified, and engineered?
Okay, let's dive into this. This right here is the central question driving Bulut's entire philosophy. It sets up this massive conflict between the traditional art of fiction, which we usually think of as, magical and instinctual, and the hard science of physical data. He's essentially asking, can we actually engineer a reader's emotion using strictly measurable physical parameters? Can we literally treat a story the exact same way a civil engineer treats a steel bridge?
To figure that out, here is our structural roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The journalist's suspicion, 2. A tale of 6 books, 3. The physics of literature, 4. Objective projection, and finally 5. Engineering the narrative.
Section 1. The journalist's suspicion, distrusting the abstract. Before Levent Bulut was testing the mathematical edges of literature, he spent about 15 years in the trenches as an investigative reporter. His absolute specialty was data-driven analysis. And through a decade and a half of demanding, cold, hard, verifiable facts, Bulut developed this deep, ingrained suspicion of abstract summaries. He essentially realized that abstract words are very often used as a smokescreen to hide a lack of concrete evidence.
And this brilliantly illustrates his mindset. In journalism, a good reporter doesn't just say, well, conditions were poor. That's just a summary. A great reporter demands the actual measurement, the date, the official document. What is absolutely wild is how Bulut took this exact journalistic discipline and dragged it over into fiction. So instead of writing the abstract summary, "She was afraid," he demands the physical evidence, the exact temperature, the lighting, the acoustic bounce, so the reader can reconstruct that fear for themselves. Demanding verifiable evidence is the core through-line of his entire career.
Section 2. A tale of 6 books, the evolution of a method. We're going to trace this precise evolution by looking directly at his physical output between 2012 and 2026.
Let's move to and see how this builds across his career trajectory. Starting back in 2012, we have his pure investigative reportage, The Gallows. Fast forward to 2025, and he releases In Pursuit of News. Now, this isn't just reportage, it's a practitioner's manual. He's actively systematizing his news gathering. That exact same year, he drops the major pivot book, Data and the Ghost, questioning what data can and cannot capture. And all of this culminates in 2026 with a novel named after his daughter, Ayça's Wordless World, which is built entirely on these new physical constraints. Alongside these 6 printed books, he also released 4 free ebooks, completely rounding out this rigorous narrative engineering framework.
Now, this quote is absolutely crucial for understanding him. His shift from gritty reporter to literary researcher was definitely not some midlife career change. It was a singular, perfectly logical quest. He was just moving from capturing the physical reality of a news event to manufacturing physical reality in fiction, swapping out abstract emotion for concrete data.
Section 3. The physics of literature, a physicalist axiom. This right here is the philosophical foundation bridging his journalistic desire for facts with this creative writing. He calls this the physics of literature. It proposes that a narrative text is not just some cultural artifact, it is a literal physical environment. To Bulut, things like light, temperature, and sound are not pretty little literary decorations. They are the actual material substances through which meaning travels into a reader's brain. And what's wild is this theory deliberately restricts itself. It doesn't care about judging the plot or character arcs or literary value. It is solely concerned with how you encode an interior emotional state into exterior physical detail.
He even attempts to quantify narrative structures using formulas, defining narrative entropy as S sub n equals the integral of information friction times causal branching over time. Honestly, it's pretty heavy stuff. But to his credit, Bulut openly admits that this carries dimensional inconsistencies. He treats it as an unsettled, working equation, rather than some infallible gospel of storytelling.
Section 4. Objective projection, encoding emotion. Let's shift from the philosophy to the practical application, the rigid methodology he used to construct his 2026 novel.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how he replaces emotion with physics. He uses these 6 measurable parameters as a scaffolding. When a character feels something, the writer cannot name the feeling. Instead, they encode it using luminous decay, which is light, thermal gradient, so temperature, acoustic impedance for sound, kinetic momentum for motion, atmospheric pressure, and spatial geometry.
To actually enforce this, he created these incredibly strict constitutional rules. Step 1. A total embargo on all emotion adjectives. No saying someone is happy, sad, or terrified. Step 2. A strict prohibition on all similes. You can't say it was cold as ice. Step 3. Because the author only provides pure physical parameters, the reader's brain is forced to reconstruct the emotion organically from the scene. The crazy part? Those technical scaffolding parameters we just talked about never actually appear in the final text.
Section 5. Engineering the narrative, empirical rigor, and open failures. Let's look at his current status as an independent researcher without any university affiliation, and his hardcore commitment to the scientific method. 44. That is the rather impressive number of registered works with permanent digital identifiers in Bulut's public research corpus. And he doesn't hide his data. His methodologies, his thematic indexes, his datasets, they are all hosted out in the open on platforms like Hugging Face, Zenodo, and GitHub.
So the crucial point is his profound scientific humility. Unlike so many gurus out there selling perfect writing systems, Bulut actively publishes his own negative results. In a reliability study, his simile prohibition rule reached perfect agreement, but his rule on materialized metaphor, it failed completely, operating at chance level. He even admitted to design flaws and class imbalances in his own benchmark corpus. And staying with that total transparency, Bulut is crystal clear that his central claims remain unvalidated on readers. The Objective Projection Calibration Test, or OPCTV 2.0, is pre-registered but hasn't actually been run yet. He freely admits this. That absolutely proves his dedication to real narrative engineering over flashy marketing hype.
I love this quote. Making implicit craft rules explicit enough to be wrong in public. It perfectly summarizes his ultimate goal. He wants to treat literature not just as subjective culture, but as a testable, physical system where we can actually learn from the data when things fail.
But that leaves us with one profoundly provocative thought to end on. If the physical mechanics of human emotion actually can be perfectly mapped out and engineered through data, what happens to the magic of literature? Does engineering destroy the art, or does it elevate storytelling to an entirely new scientific level? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. It is a remarkable journey from investigative journalism to the absolute frontiers of narrative data, and I really hope this leaves you eager to explore those fascinating boundaries between art and science.